This was an absolutely perfect conclusion for the Buddy Daddies anime. In 12 short episodes, they made a short, sweet, and to-the-point show that doesn't need any more, but leaves you off on the absolute perfect ending, at least for someone like myself. Now, I do need to make a very quick note. If I do seem maybe a little less enthusiastic, or maybe my voice isn't as high as normal, or my mouth isn't moving quite as much, it's because I did have a wisdom tooth removed yesterday. It was my last one. It was impacted, so I have stitches on the inside of my mouth. I feel fine. Nothing too extraordinary pain-wise. But just know, I can't really be that enthusiastic without potentially ripping them, so I just want to make a quick mention of that. But in terms of a final episode, honestly, I was a little worried because originally, for the longest time, this show was listed for 13 episodes. Turned out that planned recap episode counted as one of the 13. So 12 episodes, I was wondering, could they end this in a satisfying way? But with the time skip, with who ended up living, who ended up dying, it honestly came together in a perfect way, and I think the areas that maybe would have been a lot harder for the community as a whole to agree with, which would have been, how are they going to tell Miri about her mother? My idea was that they would probably just tell her she died of cancer. I mean, as a kid myself, I had a lot of family members who ended up dying from cancer at around Miri's age, and I was able to comprehend it, so for me, I thought that was the play. Some people thought they had to be honest, no lying, and honestly, there was probably no way to completely justify how Miri would respond, but by using the time skip, they basically say that whatever was told, she ended up loving her mother even into her teenage years, and I think that's absolutely the perfect way to go about things, because the characters who ended up dying and the characters who ended up living, it all makes sense. For someone who's been collecting names in a notebook like a psychopath, to see him get the most savagely satisfying death I think possible, where the father, the way Ray refused to kill him, or even himself, right, and to be able to walk out and see that time skip, the time skip is the perfect way to end this show. Now, before we jump any further, I do have to mention, we do have a full live reaction available on my Patreon, so if you want to see my full live reaction to either episode 12 or any of the previous episodes, head on over there and consider supporting, as this is definitely one of my favorite shows to cover both there and on the channel. Now, like I said, the time skip was the perfect way to end this, because here's the thing. We had a handful of minutes left after it was all said and done. The mission was seemingly over. If we would have not seen a 10-year time jump, it's possible people would have argued, nope, the father will come back someday, or, she'll end up hating the truth about her mother. But by skipping ahead and showing her about to enter high school, and to show it as her favorite cooking comes from Papa Ray of all people with his French toast, to see the photo on the desk showing that she still loves and cares about her mother, to see the two daddies now just having a good, normal life. They have a beautiful home, a beautiful restaurant, and to see how at the very end they kind of skim over all the different pictures, whether it was from the sister-in-law, whether it was from her first day at public school, right? Just all these moments show us that throughout all the hell that all three of them have been through, losing a pregnant wife and your unborn child, having a father raise you as a mindless killer, and to have a mother who had a lot of problems but tried to come back before being brutally killed. They found a family in each other, and the fact that you end this show with all three of them having the life they deserve, there's no better way to end Buddy Daddies than what we just saw here. Now, I do want to talk about that kill because that kill was absolutely savage. So I always think about these things and I never see it come through. So I've seen plenty of times where characters get stabbed in the back. In this case, this man got stabbed in the neck. Not enough to kill him, but definitely would be feeling that in the morning. I always think, man, if they fall down on that blade, it's going to be disgusting. But yeah, they've killed characters. I mean, literally near the start of this episode, Ray chokeholds a guy and snaps his neck. They shoot characters. There is blood in this show. But to see him headbutt him and then for him to fall on the ground as the blade ruptures out, that was absolutely one of the craziest kills I've seen. Because I think sometimes the goriest of moments come from shows that don't really throw it in your face too often. But when it does, it just feels realistic. You're literally fighting for your life. You try to stab a guy, didn't come through. He gets headbutted, kind of gets knocked out, and he falls right down. It's possible the blade might end up curving, going down like that, but it's entirely possible, given how deep it was, that it would just rip through his throat, and that's exactly what happened. And to see him reach out to that notebook, either to put his last words in himself, or maybe to record what the mother's last words were, which we learned was Miri, I mean, the fact that they burn him, I think that was satisfying. Entering this episode, I thought both him and the father needed to die, but I actually came to appreciate how they let the father live, because as he brings up, if you kill me here, Ray, the organization will not stop until you're dead, because it'll just keep on going. but by leaving him alive and separating himself, shooting his arm saying, see, I'm useless to you, I value all these things, I'm no longer a killer, I won't even kill you even after you threaten my life in this way. The fact that his father was unable to pull the trigger as he walked away in that moment, it really does show that he's over this life, that he has a clean slate on his hands, and the fact that we get that decade time skip to see them, new location, new home, new life, no longer killers. As much as I would love to say I'd love to see a season 2 of Buddy Daddies, this feels like the right stopping point. If they were to make a season 2 of Buddy Daddies, it would have to be slice of life focus of just cute antics, and while I would enjoy that, I definitely think it would grow boring quickly and wouldn't be able to last a full season for someone like myself. But I think by having a 12 episode season, often 12 episodes, it isn't enough. But then there's these other shows where they feel like it should have been maybe a one core story. And PA Works, they've been doing a very good job at just having an idea that on paper people might start comparing to shows of late, but very quickly you're like, oh no, it's not like this show at all. It's brand new, it's different, it's funny, it's wholesome, it's holy, that's actually kind of brutal. But by the end, you just feel like, damn, 12 episodes, you did more than a lot of these shows that try to go on for 36 episodes and fail miserably. I think there's a lot of good anime being made, but there's only so many shows that are truly fantastic, and I would consider among some of the best anime of an entire year, and Buddy Daddies is already in that spot for me. The year just kicked off, next season is kicking off starting tomorrow, and honestly there's a lot of great shows lined up. But this is a show that I will be thinking about for some time. It was emotional, it had weight, and I love how the theme of this show came down to family isn't defined by blood. Family is what you make it. They all came from different walks of life, and they all taught each other more than anything possible, and that's why you can leave a show like this with a grin on your face. Like I said, I think it was smart, leaving the mother's fate a little up in the air, but clearly resolved. I mean, you don't get 10 years thinking she's still on a trip. She definitely knows she's dead, it's just a matter of what they told her, which I think is right to give the viewer their own headcanon of what they want to see resolved there. But in terms of who got to live, who got to die, as much as I dislike Ray's father, I think the way they handled his exit, I think makes sense, and the person who was an absolute lunatic recording names, I mean, he deserved that death and so much more, and I love the fact that he also lost his book in a big burning building, like, that's fantastic. I think the action in this episode, even prior to the whole knife scene, was actually kind of John Wickish. Maybe it's just because I recently watched the movies, but man, like, I mean, the initial, when he had the shotgun, and then our boy Ray comes in and they kind of like had this like hand-to-hand combat, that little Sakuga animation, and then almost the Resident Evil-ish where you're like in Resident Evil 2 and Mr. X is kind of chasing you down the hall and he's just slowly walking. There was actually some surprisingly good directing in this episode. Not to say there hasn't been in prior episodes, but I honestly thought this episode took it up a notch. And similar to my gore comment, I think because this show does have action but it doesn't rely on it every episode, when it is there, it's usually pretty engaging. Sometimes characters shoot and you say, how the hell did they miss? And then at other points you're like, damn, they shot that way too precise given how much they're missing. But it felt like a very fun action finale without relying too heavy on action while still letting the emotion be the main star of the show. Either way, I leave with a grin on my face and I can see myself rewatching this one very, very soon. But if you got any thoughts on the final episode or the show as a whole, let me know what you thought of Buddy Daddies down below. Drop a like if you enjoyed and subscribe if you're new around here. Be sure to ring that bell so you can get notified when I upload on the channel. And like I mentioned, I do have full live reactions to all 12 episodes available on my Patreon if that interests you. So, till next time everyone, please take care and have a good one.